I'm Mason Mount. You're listening to the London is Blue podcast.
All right, defense or lack thereof. Credit D Dormer on the socials. Here's the stat. Opta Joe. I like how you're leading off with the power stat going into this. 79. Chelsea conceded 79 goals in all competitions in the 1920 season, an average of 1.44 per game, their worst ratio in a season since the 1990-1991 campaign, which was a 1.64 goals per game conceded rate. Problematic. So there's that. And we've like listened back and learning more about the 90s. Not great. Not a great comparison, Nick.
90-91, not a notable year for Chelsea. I'll say that. Yeah, I mean, the more that you dig into the stats this year and just, to take the Dormer level view of the season, it's kind of a miracle that we escaped with top four. And, it's, if not for a fair amount of bad luck going against us in the FA Cup final, could have possibly won a trophy, and clearly are not going to win the Champions League conceding as many goals as we do. So, Grant, I'm going to pass the ball to you on this one, because I know that you've been kind of tweeting about it for the last whole year, it seems, at this point. But it's an incredible amount of goals to ship for a team that does have some experienced defenders. I mean, I think that let's blame the youthful exuberance excuse only really works in attack for this team, maybe, whereas the defense is filled with a lot more veterans.
Yeah, I don't really know where to start. I mean, I think I've been tweeting so much because I can't actually put my finger on it, and I think we know that defending is a team function. It's not just about the defenders. And people point obviously to last season, we had a pretty good defensive record, especially in the Premier League, because the Europa League, you play weaker sides. So looking at trying to compare our defensive record in that competition, it's not really a fair comparison. But in the Premier League, we were much better defensively, and we had Rudiger and David Luiz for almost the entire season playing as a centre-back pairing. We didn't have any other defensive midfielders playing that were protecting the defence. We didn't have any new fullbacks. We didn't have a different keeper. So people will point to that and say, well, it's just Lampard's bad coaching, or what is it? That's kind of the sentiment or the narrative that's going on. You see guys like Jonathan Wilson writing about Lampard not being able to organise a team, even from like the first or second game, which was pretty unfair at that stage. But it's difficult. But I did say to you guys, I wanted to talk a bit about Rudiger, because I don't think any of us think he's had a great season. I mean, we've seen him make a lot of mistakes. The nature of the mistakes is also probably the problem. You kind of see him mishitting a clearance and someone finishes it off, and it looks a lot worse than making a little error that no one's really noticed. But of the central defenders we have, he's the only one that's actually had a reliable campaign in his Chelsea career. Under Sorry last season, he played pretty much the whole season until he got injured. The defensive record was really good. His performances were excellent, especially because he wasn't being protected by, two giant defensive midfielders making him do pretty much nothing, or he wasn't the sort of organizer like Terry who could kind of pull Espeliqueta near to him and Matic near to him and not actually do a great deal. He was pretty exposed, and he had a great season. His first season, Conte's second season, there was a run around December. I think he had 6 or 7 clean sheets in his performances in a row, even though he was in and out of the side, so it wasn't 7 games in a row as a team. So I think he's actually got more of a track record of performing well, even if I did have doubts when he arrived, if he's an actual back four defender. He seems a bit more suited to the size of a back three. He's quick, he's not the tallest, not great in the air, but quite strong, going to the channels, he's pretty good defending there. So yes, he's had a terrible season. I don't know if his season's been any worse than someone like Christensen. He certainly kept more clean sheets than Christensen this year, and he was out for most of this, the first few months with his injury. So I still have some hope for him to redeem himself next season. He's got 2 years left in his contract, so I don't know what you guys think, but it might be, make or break next season for him and Christensen if they hang around with 2 years left each on their deals. If we can afford to actually go into the season with that situation, or we're going to renew one of them. But he's actually got a better track record than than Christensen and Zouma, to be fair too. I mean, yeah, albeit with injuries, but he's the one with the most pedigree, and you'd expect that he's the most experienced. I don't know what you guys think. I mean, I think we can all agree he had a pretty poor season in general.
I think a lot of the idea is just that our defensive core just isn't at the level in general where we need. So it's like we're expecting these guys to be playing like we have John Terry and Ricardo Carvalho again when they're not. But that's the level we want. So I think it's really a matter of assessing the center backs and saying, all right, we need to find reinforcements somehow. And it sounds like Frank's going to have to sell half the loan army to do that. So if he can do it, it's who can be a good partner to hopefully someone better. And I think, it's fair part. Like Rudiger, as far as like an international in the German team, his time at Roma, coming here, like he had a lot of like big match, good size team experience. And I think it's interesting that, last year to this year is so different. The systems, the styles, what they're needed to do. You talk about Rudiger and Lampard. It kind of seemed like didn't get off to a great start together. Rudiger's like, I'm healthy. And Lampard going to his press conference like, Rudiger's injured. And you're just like, well, what's going on here? All right, this is a little weird. And it could have just been Lampard protecting him so he wouldn't come back right away and get injured again. It could be as simple as that. But, Rudiger, like Christensen, like Zouma, like Azpilicueta, have played in a back four, have played in a back three, have played in multiple positions in the back three, in the back four. And the lack of consistency has really struggled for the back line. And at least from my standpoint, Dan, we always quote the top teams of saying they have a solidified defensive unit and lineup, and they play week in, week out. And Frank knows that. And like, he knows that the solidity and the cores we've had in the past, he just abandoned it for the season. So maybe it's a learning process for him, or he had an idea he wanted to try, and now he has data to make new decisions based on that. But it was really weird to just see just how, we couldn't predict a center back pairing all season. Like, if you wanted to fail, guess what our defensive lineup was going to be every single week. Emerson played yesterday. When is the last time we saw Emerson?
Well, it took Alonso being suspended to force Emerson back into the starting 11.
And Aspi injured.
Yeah.
Right. But that's the point. How wild is that?
Well, it's twofold, right? Because you didn't know if you were going to get a back four or a back three. And then you didn't know, was Aspi going to be the left back this time, or was he going to be the right back? And how would then Frank sort everything around it? We saw Reece getting back into fitness at the beginning of the season, and then he kind of gets a chance to go into the right back spot, which brings Aspi over to the left. And then you're trying to figure out, it's almost a whack-a-mole situation where they were allowed to run until a mistake was made. And then Frank was very quick to pivot to the next defender and try a new solution or a solve. And it didn't help that Kepa was also our goalkeeper that probably did not instill a ton of confidence in any of our defenders this season. So it's a multitude of issues. I love the fact that you were kind of pointing out, Grant, it's a team effort as well. A lot of times when you see Jorginho maybe not making the run back at pace, Kovacic maybe kind of gets dispossessed in the wrong area of the pitch, really puts a lot of pressure on those defenders, especially when we're trying to keep everything pushed forward and compact, that really then it becomes, in my mind, a foot race. And, just when you look at some of the pace of our defenders, Alonso or, Aspi, really maybe struggled occasionally in those positions. Then you have either Zouma or Rudiger left to kind of be in a foot race against some of the Premier League's best, hasn't always netted a positive result.
Yeah. Look, I said after I think it was the Sheffield United defeat, we had that disaster first half, and at halftime we changed formation and we went to a back three. Rudiger came on and played in the middle of the back three with Zouma to his left. That was the first time we'd seen that all season. Just really a strange thing to see because, I think most of us know Zouma is probably not super comfortable on his left side. So if he's playing on the left of two central defenders in a back four, that's one thing. But playing on the left of a back three is really going to expose that. I can't really understand the thought process of all the changes. The the start of the season, we had Zouma and Christensen, Zouma on the left, Christensen on the right. Then Tomori got his debut, played on the right next to Zouma. And then the next game, Tomori played on the left with Zouma on the right, and they had that long run of games where they looked really good together. We had the FA Cup final with Zouma playing on the right of the back three. That happened only once the whole season. He played in that Valencia game, he played on the right of the back three because, Rudiger got injured in his first game back at Wolves. So basically Rudiger goes left centre-back, right centre-back, left of a back three, right of a back three, middle of a back three, all the time. He's always the one moving around. Christensen always on the right of the two central defenders or in the middle of a back three. So he's got a lot more consistency for his own game. But Rudiger's got to change. It's just, I don't really understand using all these. If you're going to change your defenders, and that does happen because centre-backs are hard to distinguish which two are the best two. It's not such a big thing to rotate, but I think you try and keep the consistency. And for all Sarri's faults, he did that well because his two centre-backs were David Luiz and Rudiger. And if Christensen came in, he played in the spot of the one guy that was being rested. So the other guy got to stay in his same spot. And it worked better because at least, one guy knows his angles, knows the position. The guy that's the rotation option moves into the other spot. And you have at least consistency in three positions. But if you make one change at centre-back and then you have to switch both guys' roles, and then maybe you make two and you have to switch Aspie to the left, you're kind of changing the whole back four with one or two changes. And then it's really disruptive. It's the same as if you started at the back three and go to a four. Then if you're just taking off, let's say, the middle centre-back and the others just drop into the same positions, it's not too much of a disruption. But when you've got to move everyone around and you've got to move Zouma from right centre-back to the left of the back three or whatever it may be, it's just too much. So yeah, you need consistency and selection, but I think just some common sense things that actually disrupted us too much within games, I think was a big deal. The FA Cup final, I didn't see any reason why Christensen couldn't play on the right to the back three in that game. We know that Zouma is not the best on the ball, and if he's going to play on the side, they're going to give him the ball. They're going to say to him, have the ball, you can't hurt us, we're not going to even close you down. And he couldn't do much with it. And he's played there before with Antonio Conte. He didn't impress. He was loaned out the next season. I know he was just off his knee injury. But I just didn't think it made sense. We had one injury in the game with Azpilicueta, and now we've changed two of the back three. So we have a whole disruption. I think if you just say, okay, it's a final, we'll put Christensen in there, plug him into the gap. We have no disruption. Can maybe rejig it at halftime if needed. I just think some of those things were a bit strange, like almost unnecessarily disrupting us for not any real gain.
And I think the last point I'll make on this before we transition to Tomori, because we know there's a lot to talk about there. Frank was kind of damned if he did, damned if he didn't this year a little bit with some of the subs that he made from match to match. Typically, early Mourinho side, if he brought in someone to the side who wasn't playing regularly, that person would reward him with a massive performance, right? And really kind of show his quality. I don't think Frank really had a whole lot of that this year. And so it kind of probably caused more uncertainty in selection than was maybe necessary. And, it's not to say that players didn't impress or that, they didn't kind of shock us at times, but it wasn't a consistent delivery of, all right, Christensen, it's your time again, go in and really show us something. I didn't really see that. So yeah, it's an interesting point on the rotation.